morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling today? Good. Glad you're happy to be here. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Wake Up America Show on a Monday. I know Monday kind of feels like brawl, but we'll try and get your day started for you with a nice bang. No, not that kind of bang, Chris Morrill. Glad to have you here today. We've got some great topics, and as usual, I'm working hard late at night to bring you the absolute best guests and morning talk. National divorce. At the top of the show, we'll speak about Bill Maher's monologue over the weekend, where he sort of went into detail about the Irish troubles riffing on the back of St. Patrick's Day. And he compared the Irish troubles to the troubles that we have here in the United States, why some people, according to a poll, believe that we are headed for and should have a national divorce. We'll discuss that, and I'll react to that monologue at the top of the show. After that, at 7:23 today, I've got some video today, some photos, of a woman who was confronted by what appears to be two federal agents after she said that she was going to go after Pfizer. We'll talk about that this morning, and you can send us your thoughts about this at 573-319-1586. That's right, the text lines are open today. You can send us your thoughts on anything that we're talking about today, your opinions, and you can also send us a story if you think that there's something that we should be covering that perhaps I may have missed. That text line again, 573-319-1586. Good morning, Caleb Vanderfeltz, Mad Mom Anon, John Rail, the lovely Steffi P, Andy Opperman, Kermode Bear, Buddy Mansour. Our friend Richard Bell is also with us this morning, as well as Chris Morrill. Nice to see you all here today. Glad to have you also up and early, ready to rise in freedom, aren't you? That's right. It may be Monday, but you get to rise in freedom. That's right. And we're ready for some God, Guns, Golden Girls, Mad Mom and Non. Hell yeah. I'm very excited to have Eric Brakey on the show today. He is going to be joining us to talk a little bit about the Republican Party turning on Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump came out and said that Ron DeSantis is a bad candidate for president, even though he's not a candidate for president yet, but he's bad because he used to be a Reagan Republican. Who would have thought that there would be a time in the Republican Party when people would turn on Ronald Reagan? But the funny thing is, and this is what my guess is going to be, I have read all the articles, so I guess I'm not guessing, but here I have to guess as to what's going on in the minds of people who are saying things like this. But my guess is that the reason why many people are turning on Ronald Reagan is that he was too libertarian. And the funny thing is that if you were to go to a Libertarian Party convention and bring up Ronald Reagan, they would give you, oh, they would hate you because they would say that Ronald Reagan was a huge statist. He launched the war on drugs. He was a terrible president because he increased the size of government. He was, too involved overseas because George H.W. Bush was pressuring, and the neocons were pressuring Ronald Reagan to be too involved overseas, and he spent too much money. And, libertarians in general are like, boo, he was too statist and too authoritarian. But now Trump Republicans are turning on the legacy of Reagan, probably because he was too libertarian. Which is funny because he was really only libertarian rhetorically, but, again, it's, we live in hell. We're just living in it. At 7:51 this morning, is drinking coffee racist? Yes, the next level of life. Excuse me while I get out we'll do my Heil Hitler this morning. Here we go. This is the new Heil Hitler salute. Here we are.
No, God!
Yeah,
No,
can you believe it?
God, please, no!
A toast to racism, I guess.
No!
And we'll ask this question that's being asked on the internet this weekend. White people, do you spice your food? Huh? I mean, apparently white people don't spice their food. This has become a big conversation over the weekend. And as somebody who puts that hot stuff on everything, I can assure you that we white people do spice our food. God, I love spicy food. Yes, makes me feel so good. I kind of think it's like a masochist thing. I don't know why, but we'll talk about that at 7:51 today. At 8 o'clock this morning, I'm actually going to play another brief little Bill Maher clip and talk about women not being attracted to girly men, which I thought was kind of a funny little piece from his. And then after that, I've got a new poll that shows that Generation Z, that's the one that I'm a geriatric millennial, so I missed it by like 1 or 2 years being Gen Z. But Gen Z is not dating. And the man who wrote this article says, the question is, why should we? I don't know. Oh, welcome to Mad Mom and On becoming the next level of Freedom Ninja. Congratulations on earning your gold bars today. Good to see you very much. You weren't sorry, had to allow Google Pay. I wasn't green. I'm back. You are back, baby. Nice to see you here today. Every little contribution helps, and we are certainly grateful for that. Don't forget, every month we do giveaways from the AP for Liberty Shop store for people who are monthly subscribers. And this month we've got a kind of a double special going on for everybody who's a subscriber to the list or who has made a purchase from apforlibertyshop.com. I'm giving away an AK-47. Now I know that the gun enthusiasts out there who are really hardcore are like, "Ugh, it's not a real AK-47 because it's chambered in 9mm." Yeah, well, you can interchange it with your Glock mags, which I think is amazing, but apparently some gun guys are out there griping about the free gun I'm giving away. Shut up. If you want a free chance to enter to win the AK-47, don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. And Judge Napolitano is going to be doing 2 interviews with me this week. Aren't you excited about that? Yeah, I thought you would be, because I'm going to speak to Judge Andrew Napolitano this morning at 8:30 to talk about, will Donald Trump be arrested? I know a lot of people are asking themselves, and maybe you haven't dug into the details yet, about the question of why is it that Donald Trump is apparently going to be arrested. Well, the allegation stems from claims that the money that Donald Trump paid in hush money to his former mistress, Stormy Daniels, was an illegal campaign contribution. And it's kind of a Frankenstein's monster, the way that they've cobbled together this um, the charges against Trump, because it is technically a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. And also, it's a local district attorney who's bringing the charges in a what would be a federal case, right? A campaign finance violation, which, by the way, if you want to talk about campaign finance violations, pretty much every single person who runs for federal office gets a campaign finance violation. I had campaign finance violations because just trying to figure out how to do it. I mean, I hired one of the best lawyers in the business to kind of try to keep me on track, but it just happens. You make mistakes when you're making filings, little things here or there. Now, did I pay a mistress to shut up about my relationship? Of course, I wasn't married when I was running for office, and probably one of the reasons why I didn't do so hot. If I'd had Steffi on my team, I probably would have won, you know? Let's give it up for Steffi P. I think if I ran again, I probably would win just because I've got that smoking hot redheaded libertarian woman on my back. But Donald Trump is apparently supposed to be arrested because of a campaign finance violation, that the hush money that he paid to Stormy Daniels was technically what they are calling an in-kind contribution. We'll talk to Judge Napolitano about that at 8:30, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of that case. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. Mad Mom and Om sending me text messages. I did see Ron Calzone's email this morning. I just didn't have a chance to go through it, but I appreciate you keeping me informed on that, Mad Mom. Grateful very much for your participation, for being a friend of freedom here, especially in my home state of Missouri. All right, are we ready to move on and talk about? Excuse me. Are we ready to react to the question of the national divorce? Take a listen.
In America, our warring factions aren't Catholics and Protestants, but that same level of hatred, of otherization, is happening between Democrats and Republicans. We've grown less religious, but that's because politics has become our religion.
Correct.
We used to pray for the nation. Now each side prays the other side doesn't destroy the nation. On one side, the Church of Woke wants to cleanse us of our past, and on the other, the cult of Trump wants to resurrect it. Trump is often depicted as some kind of religious warrior, and now he's talking like an end-times religious nut. He speaks
Have you noticed this? I mean, it was one thing if you're watching the live stream right now, you can see there's this one picture of where he got Jesus on his arms. But have you seen it? And I know one of them was just a parody, a satire, but somebody actually tweeted in all seriousness about how Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days. And just like Trump will get out of prison and rise, his presidential campaign will rise after 3 days. It's a little bit, I don't know. I mean, if I were a Christian, I'd probably be like,
Dare you?
it is a little blasphemous, don't you think? But I'm pretty sure that the picture that I saw that was satire, where it showed Nancy Pelosi poking, where Trump was being crucified, and they were poking. Nancy Pelosi was poking Donald Trump with the spear in his side and stuff like that. I think that that was like a satire, but you never really can tell anymore. Anyways, let's continue.
Speaks about an epic battle against sinister forces and says, I am your warrior, I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. Oh, Jesus, thanks, Batman. To get any closer to smite the infidels, you'd have to be standing in a cave with a Kalashnikov and a turban. We will expel the warmongers, he says. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists. We will...
Okay, pause. I'm for expelling the warmongers. Globalists, depends on how you define it. We will cast out the communists. You know what? I'm not... So far, Bill, you're not saying anything that I disagree with, but these are Donald Trump's words here. So I got to say, I know Chris Morrill's triggered, but I mean, yeah, we should expel the warmongers and the communists. Okay, but, if we're talking about international free trade in terms of globalism, then, that means I guess I got to go.
Liberate America from these villains and scoundrels once and for all. Big talk from a guy who can't even shut up his girlfriends.
God damn, that woman is ugly, too. How are you going to cheat on on Melania with Stormy Daniels? I mean, she's fugly. Ugly.
But that's where we are. Your fellow citizens who support the other party aren't just wrong, they're heretics who have to be destroyed. Political identities have become stronger than religious ones, stronger even than racial. 94% of it.
Okay, well, at least when he says that political identities have become stronger than racism, the difference with the political identity is that at least it's something that you choose for yourself, right? At least it's something that you made a conscious choice for. Not all of us, trust me. Plenty of people out there did not choose their political beliefs. They had it inherited from their parents, like their religion or what have you. But the difference between identifying as a certain political belief system, like a libertarian or a constitutionalist or a monarchist or whatever it is that you identify with, at least that was something that you had to make a conscious choice for, Bill. So, distinction here, very important, and a difference.
Adults are now cool with interracial marriage. It's inter-party marriage. That's a deal breaker for a majority of Republicans and Democrats who don't want their kids marrying someone who belongs to the other.
Okay, probably a good idea, though, here, Bill. And I got to say that, again, I probably break with Bill Maher on this one. So this is a poll he's citing here in The Atlantic, where he says 60% of Democrats and 63% of Republicans would now balk at their child marrying a supporter of a different political party. Now, it's true that in the past that might not have been as big a deal for people to marry someone across the aisle, but politics has become much more of a thing in people's lives. And I agree with him when he says that it has become a religion for some people. And I do think that, having more people being civically engaged may or may not be a good thing. But again, at least it's something tangible. At least it's something real. Versus, again, the circumstances of your birth, which I see as mostly immaterial. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, especially if you're of some collectivist tribe or another. I was having a discussion about this last week because people so strongly identify with, the geopositioning location of their birth. But it's not really, yeah, exactly. Elizabeth Press says, I don't want dem grandkids. Yeah, no kidding. You want to make sure that your children are raised under a certain value set. I've told you guys the story about, Stossel telling me, marry a libertarian girl if you can. And I absolutely waited until I found the absolute perfect libertarian girl who shared my values and beliefs. We're not going to raise our kids to be little communists. We're not going to raise them to be little socialists. When we have children, we are going to raise them to be freedom fighters and to believe in individualism and to believe in themselves and, to only respect legitimate authority and to disrespect illegitimate authority, which I believe is an important thing. You know what? My dad always taught me to respect legitimate authority, but he taught me to disrespect illegitimate authority, like cops. All right, let's talk about that when we get back. A couple of cops went to visit a lady who said she was going to get Pfizer. They asked her if she was going to hurt Pfizer. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire. Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be
Hello,
a
this
monthly
is Barack
donor today.
Obama.
And if
let
you're
me tell
feeling
you
generous,
why
you can even
Austin
give a
Peterson
donation in my
stinks,
name.
and you should never
Thanks for
pay
listening,
attention to
and
anything
keep
that he
on
has to
keeping
say.
on, America.
First of all,
Come on,
he's a
man.
libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store, aporlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself. Oh, me mum.
When I was in foster
Liberty Laura
care,
has
I
made some
never
designs
knew
as well,
when I would
and
have to
blimey,
move.
they are great.
So I always had
Number
my
2,
suitcase
most of these
ready to
products
go.
are so wicked
Then
that
one
they
day,
aren't
I was
even allowed to
adopted.
be
My
advertised
new
on
parents
Facebook or
opened their hearts
Instagram.
and
Mine
homes to
machine
me.
guns and a proper
My
keychain.
parents cooked my
Plus,
favorite breakfast
our
for
Grover
me
Cleveland
every
t-shirt.
morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericashow.com. Glad to have you here. How are you feeling on a Monday? What do you think of me playing two commercials at the same time during that break? Yeah, see, I figure, if I play two commercials at once, and it's like, then I'll really make double the sales, right? Yeah? Nah, you guys didn't like that.
Oh, God! No,
you don't
God,
like it when I
please,
play two
no,
commercials at the same time.
no,
One of these days, guys, I'll have a producer here, and I won't have to have a laptop sitting in front of me, running the show, pulling the strings, making everything happen at everything all at once, cameras and microphones and stuff. I'll just be able to sit back and relax and be able to do my show completely. So anyways, sorry about that one. Two tracks playing at the same time. Seems a little better now. Says Todd in Minnesota. Good morning, Todd in Minnesota. How are you today, sir? Good. Glad to have you over here. Thank you very much for tuning into the Wake Up America show at Wake Up America Show. So I've got another story for you today, another one that I think you'll find interesting. This is according to a report. FBI agents confront a woman to ask her if she has any intention of harming Pfizer. Take a listen to this. So the headline is saying it's a report, right? Not actual FBI agents for sure. They don't have, of course, we don't have a reason to believe that they aren't. Here's a photograph. A lady decided to hide their identities, which, she doesn't necessarily have to. You get confronted by police officers in a public place. You can absolutely record them and publish their identity. Maybe not necessarily the best idea, but it does happen, and see how the police officers treat you. Hopefully there's somebody there watching what's going on. Apparently, two FBI agents showed up at her job to talk to her about her Twitter posts criticizing Pfizer Pharmaceutical Corporation. She says, yes, this actually effing happened to me yesterday right here in New York State. Well, let's not act as if it's something illogical that you're going to get approached by cops in the state of New York. I mean, for God's sakes, it is New York. Take a listen to this.
Fight back.
Yeah, do you have plans to hurt anybody?
I meant by refusing their shots.
So we have to ask
That's how you fight back.
Right, we just have to clarify.
Okay, well, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Do I have intentions to hurt anybody? No, I don't.
You have no plans of executing or carrying out.
How can you execute a corporation? It's not a human being.
You have no plans on
executing Pfizer? No, because you can't physically do it. It was a joke.
You can haunt buildings. There's plenty of things you can do to harm a corporation. That's why we're here to ask you.
You have no intention of harming a corporation or doing anything to destroy, cause destruction to any of their facilities?
No, ma'am, I don't. You're here representing Pfizer.
Okay, pause. All right. So first of all, this lady, whoever the lady is right here, I got to give her a big fat libertarian. And why? Why? Not necessarily because I don't agree with her when it comes to her free speech rights, which I absolutely believe that she has the right to free speech. But why the hell are you talking to cops? Conservatives, their love for the police is going to bite them in the ass because of things like this, right? When the woke police show up one day, the conservatives are going to say, oh, Mr. Policeman, he's my friend. We back the blue. We've got to back the blue. bumper sticker. They're not going to take us away. They're not going to take our guns. They're not going to enforce wokeness on me. When I refuse to allow my son to be medically transitioned before the age of attainment, the police aren't going to enforce that. They're not going to stand at guard outside the drag show to whenever my kid goes inside there and, is getting felt up by some weirdo. The police are going to protect me and my kids. Oh, I'm sorry to inform you that the government is not on your side. And the problem is with the conservatives like this is that they assume that they have the best of intentions. But let me just tell you, here's a little bit of advice from your friends in the liberty movement over there. Don't talk to cops, okay? Do not talk to police officers. I don't care if they're your best friend and you grew up with. If you're a fully formed adult, you have rights, okay? And one of those rights is that you shall remain silent. If somebody comes up to you in a situation like this and starts asking you questions, you say, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" What do you think of that? Can I get an amen? Chris Morrill says, "Is it okay that I don't hate cops?" Just asking. So wait a minute. So you hate Donald Trump, but you don't like the people who are going to enforce Donald Trump's laws. Makes no sense. Todd in Minnesota, thanks so much for following us over on Twitch this morning. Glad to have you here. I think I would be a little less spiky about police officers if we had fewer laws. If the laws that the police were charged to enforce were valid laws in keeping with our natural rights, I think I would have no problem with that. The problem is, and I was talking about this with somebody just last week. The problem is that we're in a situation now where it's the good cops who don't enforce the bad laws. The bad cops are the ones enforcing the laws to their fullest extent. Oh man, who was I talking about? I think it was actually my mother-in-law and wife and I were having this conversation about when you have laws that are obvious bad laws, police look the other way. Well, that's how you know you've got a good cop, right? So it's the good cops who don't obey the law and the bad cops who obey the law to its fullest extent. That's how you know that we're living in Frederick Bastiat's The Law, where he said that the law is perverted and the police powers of the state are perverted along with it. So I'm just telling you, there's never a situation where it's in your best interest to have a conversation with a police officer, especially under this situation. What is a cop's job? Their job is to take you to arrest you and take you to jail. The sheriff is the only lawful law enforcement. Todd, you make a very good point. He says, constitutionally speaking, the cops and all the three-letter agencies are all a standing army. Boy, Todd, coming in hot this morning. Absolutely. Barney Stiles says, I don't hate cops, but you have to remember that eliminating suspects isn't their job. Identifying suspects is. Thank you. Barney Stiles says, that is why they destroyed the Oath Keepers from the inside. You're absolutely right. Again, you guys are all, whew. Yes, you do know a thing or two about a thing or two this morning. Revenue collectors for the bureaucrats. Wow, Todd, where did you come from, bro? Did we just become best friends? Man, I love seeing this. All right, we're getting some hot comments this morning. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump and why he may or may not be arrested tomorrow with Judge Napolitano a little bit later on the program at 8:30 today. We're going to speak to Judge Knapp about the allegations that are supposed to lead to the arrest of Donald Trump. Personally, I have some information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton, but I'll have to give that to you at a later date. Let's continue this analysis that I have, this dissection of I can't continue it. You know why? Because Eric Brakey just texted me and says he's waiting the Zoom link. Oops. I'm late. I got to go get Eric Brakey. All right, this time I promised during the commercial break that there will only be one set of commercials playing, and I'm sorry about that for last time. But I will be right back. I promise I won't take a big, long commercial break. I just got to go get Eric Brakey for the break. Brakey for the break. When I get back, we'll talk about the Donald Trump stuff on Wake Up America's show at wakeupAmericasShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Happy Monday. Thanks so much for tuning into the program. We're glad to have you here. How are you feeling? Nice. studio audience up bright and early this morning. Looks like you've had your coffee. Don't forget, after we have our next guest, we're going to have a conversation about whether or not drinking coffee is racist. So you're all racist right now until we can absolve you of your sins a little bit later. After you've paid your reparations, of course. Joining me now to talk about what it means to believe in the philosophy of Ronald Reagan. And is it a liability to call yourself a Reaganite or a Reagan Republican? Joining me now to discuss is Eric Brakey. He is a current state senator from Maine, I believe. Is that right, Eric? Have I got your title correct?
That's right, Austin. Good to see you this morning.
Nice to see you, Eric. You're one of our nation's premier freedom fighters, so we're very thankful that you gave us a little bit of your time this morning to chat about this very important subject. Donald Trump is out accusing Ron DeSantis of being, oh man, I don't know if there's anything worse, a Reagan Republican. That might be the first time that it's ever been used publicly as a slur. What are your thoughts when you hear something like that, Eric?
Well, it has been at least a full generation since Ronald Reagan was president. I know I was born in the year he was exiting the White House. I don't know about you, Austin. So the only memories I have of Reagan are the memories imparted to me by folks, in the generation behind me. And it's been very interesting to watch my entire life how every presidential candidate running for the Republican ticket claimed to be the embodiment of Ronald Reagan. And what was always interesting is rather than actually meaning that they've conformed themselves to what Ronald Reagan stood for, they seem to twist the legacy of Ronald Reagan to conform to what they wanted it to be. And I think particularly of the neoconservatives who always wanted to make Ronald Reagan's legacy out to be some great war hawk who was ready to invade any country around the world at the drop of a hat. That certainly wasn't the Reagan that I've studied, who, had open channels of communication with the Soviets to avoid nuclear war, who at various times pulled troops out of Middle Eastern countries when he realized how crazy the geopolitics of those regions were. And so I think what we're dealing with here more with is we are in a new generation, and the parameters of what it means to be a Reagan Republican have been so stretched and distorted over the decades that it's not really useful anymore to say, that you're a Reagan Republican, because it's hard to know what that means anymore.
Exactly, Eric. For example, he was, for free markets in general, but he also accepted the New Deal. He called himself a free trader, but he also acted to protect American automakers and Harley Davidson from Japanese imports. If he was a little bit hawkish on foreign policy, but he was a little bit more prudent than the Bushies, for example. So it wasn't as if you could say he really was an ideologue in any sense. He kind of had, feet in both camps. But here's my thing. I debated with a Groyper in Maryland a couple of weeks ago, and she's a big Trump fan and worked for him, I think, in Iowa, and was like, well, the problem with America is that we've had too much libertarianism. Libertarians have had control for too long. So this is what the populists believe, Eric. And so my guess is that the Trump people, if they don't like Reagan, it's because they thought he was too libertarian. What do you think?
Boy, one of the great proponents of the war on drugs was a great libertarian. Who knew? What's interesting as you describe Reagan's kind of legacy of kind of having his feet in both camps on various sides of all issues. It actually sounds a little bit like Donald Trump when you think about it, and that here's the legacy of someone who made a big stamp during their time in the presidency. But what that legacy is, what the policy and the philosophy pushes of that legacy are really kind of left up to how you want to interpret it. So, I mean, those of us who are skeptical of war could look at Donald Trump and say, here's a man who didn't start any new wars, and that's the legacy of Trump we want to carry forward into the Republican Party. But then hawks can point to, the legacy of Trump is, killing Soleimani and dropping huge bombs on Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq and continuing the wars of the past. So, all of these are really so much is made by opportunists and propagandists onto what presidents actually stood for.
For sure. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Maine State Senator Eric Brakey. We're talking a little bit this morning about the legacy of Reagan as it applies to Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Eric, I'd like to move on very briefly for a segue about something that you and I haven't had a chance to talk about in public yet, but sort of privately and kind of on social media. We've talked about your former opponent, the current U.S. Senator from Maine, Angus King, who it was revealed in the Twitter leaks dropped by Matt Taibbi and ostensibly Elon Musk, though he refused to name him in congressional testimony. But your U.S. senator, who you ran against from Maine, apparently dropped a list that had or at least it was revealed that he had a list with my wife's name on it, that named her as, I guess, an out-of-state troll. What is this?
Yeah, apparently she was a potential Russian disinformation spreader because I think this was before I'd never met her before other than online. I still don't think I've ever met your wife, though she seems a very pleasant lady. But I know back in 2018, I was running for U.S. Senate. You were running for U.S. Senate, and she was sharing supportive things on social media about Liberty candidates running for federal office, and apparently that was enough to get her flagged by the campaign of my opponent, the incumbent U.S. senator who sits on the Intelligence Committee, by the way, Angus King. Her and hundreds of other people, real people, being flagged for monitoring by Twitter. And the King campaign says, "Oh, we weren't asking Twitter to censor anyone. We just wanted to monitor them." Well, monitor them for what purpose? It kind of begs the question. And it all comes back to, they say, well, we were concerned about a video that the Brakey campaign released that was spreading misinformation, and it was a doctored video. Here's what this video was. Angus King at a 9/11 commemoration event basically used it as an opportunity to push war propaganda, pushing us towards a war escalation with Russia, comparing supposed 2016 Russian election hacking. Many of these claims have since been debunked, with the 9/11 Twin Tower attacks, and saying it was the same kind of attack on America. I thought that was an absurd claim to make at a 9/11 ceremony, but he's made this claim multiple times. He made it on CNN, and we basically took the video of him saying it twice. We did a little jump cut to show he said this thing twice, and they pointed at that jump cut and said, "Look, they've doctored this video, and they're misrepresenting what Angus King has said, even though he had said it other places." And they use this as justification to go to Twitter, try to get the video censored, and people who were sharing it censored, and then anyone who was just being critical of him or supporting my candidacy as well. So that's the story there. I commend Matt Taibbi for breaking the story and letting us see behind the curtain the ways in which powerful people, and it's worth noting, the two people who've been outed of doing these sorts of things with Twitter have been Senator Angus King and Representative Schiff from California, both powerful members of the Intelligence Committee. It really makes you wonder about the ways that those in these special positions of influence in our government are abusing their power.
For certain. And, if we existed in a vacuum, if corporations existed in a vacuum, they would be able to censor whoever they want. But the fact that the government is asking companies to do this, it is, in my opinion, I'm sure you would agree, a blatant violation of our First Amendment rights. Very briefly, I did want to say a big shout out and thank you to Quest Fanning for the super chat this morning. And he says, "Constitutional carry and working for Yala, etc. We love Eric Brakey." A lot of big Eric Brakey fans out there this morning. That is who I'm speaking to live. Eric, you've got a new initiative that you're working on. I believe it's something along the lines of protecting the National Guard, or essentially preventing the National Guard from being used to fight undeclared, unconstitutional wars. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me. What's the story here, Eric? What are you working on?
Yeah, well, this bill is coming up for public hearing today in the Maine legislature. I'm about to head out the door and go to present this legislation this afternoon. And yeah, you hit on it pretty well. It's Defend the Guard legislation. It's currently being sponsored in something like 24 states, maybe in Missouri, for all I know. You've got some great liberty legislators there. What this would do is it would interpose the states between the federal government and the National Guard to say that only when Congress has followed the Constitution and properly declared war will our state National Guardsmen be sent into foreign war zones. We look back at the wars of the last 20 years, none of them declared, and yet our state National Guardsmen across the country have accounted for nearly 50% of troops on the ground in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan. None of it constitutionally authorized. The Constitution says the federal government may call forth the militia under 3 circumstances: to repel invasion, to suppress insurrection, or to enforce the laws of the Union. You look at a country like Syria, which we're currently occupying today, even though the American people were greatly outraged when our government wanted to invade in 2014, Congress wouldn't even pass a resolution authorizing it because they were scared about the political blowback. And yet our soldiers are there today. Are we repelling an invasion? Well, arguably there's an invasion that happened, but we certainly weren't repelling it. Are we suppressing an insurrection? Well, actually the mission there was to foment an insurrection, including giving weapons to Al-Qaeda, who went on to become ISIS for the purpose of regime change in Syria. So it doesn't qualify under either of those 2 standards. And so the only other standard could be to enforce the laws of the Union. But again, the Constitution is clear. Only Congress can declare war. Congress has not declared war. And furthermore, these flimsy AUMFs that we're still living under from the Bush administration era, the AUMF, one of the AUMFs they point to for justifying the war in Syria, the legal pretense for it, was the 2001 AUMF against Al-Qaeda. And of course, again, in Syria, the mission was to arm Al-Qaeda. So it's hard to imagine that an AUMF against one foe can be used to justify aiding that foe in a different battlefield. There's no legal justification for this, and it's up to the states to step up and enforce the terms of the Constitution and to defend our National Guardsmen from being deployed in these unconstitutional wars.
Love it. I completely agree with you, Eric Brakey. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
Folks can follow me on Twitter if they'd like to, at Senator Brakey.
Follow Senator Brakey, a state senator from Maine and the tip of the spear in the fight for liberty here in the United States. Eric, thank you for your time today. We're very grateful.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you very much. What did you think of Eric Brakey? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. All right, it's time to talk about my friends over at Lear Capital. We've been seeing all that's going on with the banking system these days, and you may be asking yourself, well, maybe things are going to blow over, and maybe I don't need to invest in gold or silver. Maybe things are going to be just fine. Well, maybe they are. I hope they are. But here's the problem. Every day I go and I read these headlines, it says that all of these companies are buying gold. Not just companies, but central banks. Now, whatever it is that you think about central banks, and I know a lot of us are not fans, and a lot of us want to abolish them, but they're not stupid. And central banks have been buying gold like it's going out of style. What is it that they know that we don't know? Precious metals miners are out there digging up as much as they can, but there's only so much gold out there to be held, right? Gold is now hitting $2,000 an ounce, right? When you see all of this turmoil in the marketplace, you say to yourself, what can I do to protect my investments? Well, you can actually say, hey, I've got my retirement account. I'd like to invest a portion of it in gold and silver, but you need to learn more. In order to get more information, you can do so for free if you visit my website at learaustin.com. That's LEARAUSTIN.com. Visit my friends over at Lear Capital at that website. The best thing to do, though, give them a call. 1-800-885-2175. Call their phone line today at 1-800-885-2175. And we will be back with more. We'll talk about why your drinking coffee this morning is racist. I'm about to pull a hate crime, baby. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive. And if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How do you like those commercials I produced for you? I know you guys love them. Glad to have you here this morning. Todd in Minnesota, Doug H., Quest Fanning, Matt Unruh, Elizabeth Press. Good to see you all here today. We're grateful to have such a nice audience today. Nice touch with the smoke, he says. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Tom. All right. Yeah, you've seen the gear over at apforlibertyshop.com. Can I tell you a really funny story real quick before I move on? And I promise this isn't like an ad necessarily. But a friend of mine is this guy online by the name of the Pew Pew Jew. His name's Yehuda Remmer. And, he's, he's Jewish and he's pro Second Amendment. So he's out there and he's got his own, website, the Pew Pew Jew. And very funny guy. And he contacted me over the weekend because he saw my shirts over at apforlibertyshop.com that said the Jews. And he says that he had gotten contacted by a bunch of liberal Jews of his who were asking him if he knew me and knew about these shirts called, that's basically just says Jews. The shirt's called the Chosen Ones Chad tees. Hold on, let's see if I can pull it up actually here. Hold on. Of course I do not have it pulled up because I screwed up and I put it in the wrong page there. This is what happens when you do a live show. You mess things up and they're all live. My kids will watch this one day and be so embarrassed for me. I know. Dad, so embarrassing. The Chosen Ones, Jewish Chad t-shirt. So my buddy Yehuda contacted me. He goes, so what is this? What is this all about? And I was like, well, it's kind of a take on the whole Washington Redskins logo. And I thought since everybody is just going to go ahead and play identity politics anyway, and we're all just going to put ourselves in these little teams, well, then everybody should just go ahead and just wear the shirt that is of their team. So I made one for Caucasians. We've sold a lot of the Caucasians jerseys. It was pretty funny. Everybody wants to be on Team Caucasians. That's right. Racists. I haven't sold any shirts of the Jews yet. They do have a minor league team, though. You can check them out, which is the minor league team is the Tribe right there as well. So if you are not for the major league, if you're not into the major league, then you can check out the sub league there, the Tribe. But when I told him about it, he thought it was hilarious and he wants to get one. And I've got to buy one of his shirts, his Never Again shirts as well. So yeah, just wear a shirt that says Jews so everybody knows. All right, let's talk about the next story. Shall we? Drinking coffee is racist and rooted in white supremacy. Of course it is. Because of course it is. I'm reading an article over at afru.com that asked the question, is coffee racist? ?
How dare you?
How drinking coffee perpetuates white supremacy. Oh, God. Here we go. Created by black people for black people, and now a pillar of white supremacist capitalism. If you consume coffee, you are helping an industry built on racism.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the f***, man? Get your ass on, boy. Get your goddamn
They write, they says, if you're a person of color, you know what I'm talking about. So I don't know what they're talking about. You walk into a new coffee shop and your senses are overwhelmed with whiteness and you get the glare from Karens. The white hipster barista lines herself up between you and the bathrooms, ready to tell you that non-customers aren't welcome. Oh. If you have because they never say that to white people. I've never had that happen to me, although I definitely have. If you have a white coffee drinking friend, he or she may have even let you in on the old coffee joke. White coffee drinkers share when POC aren't around, people of color. And it's funny, I've never heard this joke before, so I must not be white enough. There are 3 things that are necessary in order to make a cup of coffee, and they are, first, a black man to roast the coffee, a yellow man to grind it, and third, a white man to drink it. What? I've never had even the most racist of white people that I've ever encountered say anything like that. But she says, the writer says, and I'm going to assume it's a she because, of course, well, I'm here to validate your lived experience. Coffee is, in fact, horribly racist, and there's data to back that up. Hold on, continue. All this BS has got me working up a thirst here. Hold on. Come on, Django. Every facet of the coffee industry is, in fact, rooted in racism from the moment whites viciously stole coffee from black and brown people to the present-day Karen sipping her morning cup of white supremacy. Whites have been able to drink the fruits of our labor and our culture with impunity. And of course, blah, 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 gentrification. It's time to boycott and divest. No intellectual honesty whatsoever, and yada, yada, yada. They got a check from Black Lives Matter and a huge house mansion in Los Angeles after that. And I was tired the next day because I didn't drink enough coffee, right? Anyways, not only is coffee racist, but apparently not spicing your food, not putting enough spice on your food is also racist as well. You just can't win. Yeah, not spicing your food enough is something I guess white people do. Twitter user claims that white people don't season their food because of racism. Okay. All right. And it all started because of a white woman who decided to do a TikTok video because she was being, this is a big deal where people, like black people say that white people don't put spice on their food. But this one lady, she actually responded to her TikTok viewers who are saying that she doesn't spice her food. Take a listen to this. Aryan goddess. Continue.
This is a PSA to the seasoning police on this app. If in your brain you only view seasoning as things like garlic powder, onion powder, or maybe something like rosemary, if this is what you view as seasoning and seasoning only, let me pose you a question. What does this come from? Granulated garlic, what is that? Garlic? Onion powder, what does that come from? Dehydrated onion? Let's take a look at the spice rub. Dehydrated garlic, onion, and bell pepper.
Okay, first of all, that is Jack Stack seasoning, and it is delicious. So be careful, white lady, you little Karen, with what you talk about my Jack Stack. Okay, that's a Kansas City barbecue spot, and I will not have it maligned. I will join the minorities in a protest.
I sauteed those bell peppers along with my onion and garlic.
What is so funny to me is if I had just doused my chicken in this rub alone, the seasoning police would be out of my comments. They wouldn't even be in there.
But then you wouldn't get as many comments. You got to understand, lady, that haters pay our bills. Let's continue.
But the second it's fresh garlic or fresh onion or fresh bell pepper, it's automatically not seasoning. And let me just say one last thing. If you're one of those people that loves to watch cooking competitions and a judge says something is under-seasoned, they're talking about salt. Under-seasoning your food means there's not enough salt in it. Salt.
Correct.
Is gonna bring out the flavor of onion, the flavor of garlic, the flavor of whatever random spice rub that you have. And let me just say that if your food tastes a little off, it's not because you need to add more powder. It's most of the time because you need to add more salt or some sort of acid like lemon juice or vinegar, okay?
Okay, wow, look at her. That's the most racist thing I've ever heard.
How dare you?
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 How dare you? Yes, very salty, very salty. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We are having a good time is she doing sign language, says Elizabeth Press? Yeah, she kind of looked like she was, wasn't she? Simple Google search apparently reveals that this topic has been discussed repeatedly in media. Robbie Thurman over there with the best Captain Kirk voice. That was my best Captain Kirk impression there. Apparently, this has been a big topic repeatedly in the media, but the manner in which people season their food varies over time and culture based on many influences, which brings us back to the problem that many of the Twitter users had with this tweet. Why do white people think that white people don't season their food, right? One tweeter user, it's Monday, give me a break. I haven't had my enough racist coffee yet. Austin, come on, be a little bit more racist. Here we go. Hold on. Oh, by the power of racism. The power of racism brings you the Wake Up America show. Dr. Strange tweet says that this take is so dumb. I don't know what. Hold on. Here's the original take that really sparked the firestorm. This is from the Honey Ma on Twitter. And this is what she said. She says, white people not seasoning their food actually really is based in racism and classism. LOL. Oh, God, what the? She says that the reason that white people don't season food is because historically, rich white people began to think seasoning was for brown people who had to season their food because they couldn't afford better tasting meat. Lady.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Lady.
Man, get your ass on, boy.
Yeah. She says that the reason why people don't season their food is because historically rich white people began to think seasoning was for brown people who had to season their food because they couldn't afford better tasting meat. Lady. She says they also associated unseasoned food with cleanliness and moral purity, calling it clean or simple eating. Yikes, lady. She just continues going on. In medieval Europe, the rich felt that once spices became affordable for everyone instead of just the wealthy, they no longer wanted them. So basically, white people don't season their food because their ancestors thought seasoning was for poor and brown people. LOL. Oh, lady, take the L. Not the O, just take 2 L's on that one. She says, white people are so ashamed of their ancestral history, they call you a liar for telling them about it. LOL. Don't worry, though. Most of your ancestors weren't rich. Most of you came from poop-covered peasants anyway. Lady, you'd be really surprised to find out what you came from, I'll be honest. Sorry. Black pepper matters, says Robbie Thierman. For sure. Quest Fanning sent us a text the other day, to this morning at 573-319-1586. You can text us too at the same number, 573-319-1586. Here's what Quest said. He said, you had Gun Owners of America rep on the other day. What is the name of the Jewish gun advocacy group? Yes, the answer to that is that it is the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms. The Jews for the Preservation of Firearms is the Jewish group that it defends gun rights. So if that's what you're asking to or about or referring to. All right, so let's change the subject. I'm not going to go to commercial break because we have been working this morning. Andrew Lako says copium. Yes, there is a big heap of copium that these people are engaged in. Bill Maher was so the reason why I pulled this Bill Maher clip, I'll tell you, is because of a new survey and an article that I read that said that Generation Z is not dating. This is an opinion piece that came out that said Generation Z is not dating. 63% of men aged 18 to 29 say they're single, as Generation Z men. Oh, excuse me, Generation Z. I thought it was Generation X. I'm so very sorry. Zoomers. So Zoomer men are not dating. Apologize. 63% of men aged 18 to 29 say they're single, as Generation Z men have given up on dating. All right, I'll get to that poll here in just a moment. But before I do, very briefly, I just want to play this real quick clip from Bill Maher talking about the problem of girly men. Take a listen to this.
Women aren't attracted to these girly men they've created. The guy you whipped into total sensitivity is...
Pause. I think it's very important there that what Bill just said, and we'll continue on as we analyze this clip here and then go into this survey. But he says, these girly men that they've created, there needs to be a whole big discussion about that. He says it and then glosses over it. Honestly, as brave as Bill Maher has been in recent, I guess, years for what he's been saying going against woke nonsense, I bet you he's not brave enough to have that kind of a conversation. Maybe he is, but I haven't heard him saying it because that's some pretty red pill stuff. Let's continue.
Women aren't attracted to these girly men they've created. The guy you whipped into total sensitivity isn't sexy to you anymore. There's a special place in a woman's heart for a man who learns to suppress his masculinity. It's called the friend zone.
Ooh.
Men, this is ultimately on you.
Is it?
She's not holding a gun to your head and making you a pussy. It's always your choice. Stop sulking.
Good point.
Stop complaining that it's hard to get laid. Oh,
Agreed.
You poor incels. Girls don't want to have sex with you unless you put in a little effort. So put in a little effort, you stupid, lazy fucks.
Okay, there's your F word for the... I don't get to drop the F-bomb today because Bill Maher did it for me. All right, let's get to this poll and this story here on the Wake Up America show. You can't say analyze without saying, well, oh, you're just terrible. You know how I feel about that. Ooh, wrong button push. Oh, well, I might as well. All across America, marriage and sexuality and relationships are on a steady decline among young people. According to a new Pew research study, 63% of men aged 18 to 29 report being single. That's a lot. That means the number of single young men is nearly twice that of single young women. I don't know exactly how that works. I don't know the math work on that one, but we'll see. I guess the women are in relationships with other women. That's the only way I can think of it. All right, the big question is why, though, right? One would think that making romantic connections would be easier than ever in our modern digital society, but actually now the opposite is true. And this is something we've discussed on this show. But the culture of convenience has sort of paradoxically made dating more difficult for men as they're forced into a hyper competitive and superficial environment that sort of emphasizes instant gratification over true human connection. Yeah, we have this, I'm not sure what it's called. It's a paradox of choice or something like that. I've been watching all these marketing videos to try and grow my AP for Liberty shop website. And one of the things that Steffi and I have been talking about is when we make like a t-shirt design, we could offer like dozens and dozens of different colors, but it's actually better if we limit the number of choices that people have to make sales, because when people come into the shop, they see all the choices and they like, oh, I'm going to go through all these choices. And rather than make a choice, they choose nothing because they have too many choices and they're confused and they don't know which one to make. So they don't choose anything. So one of the things that we have in this paradox of choice is the same in the dating market, where people, when they have too many choices, they always think, oh, I can get something better somewhere else. When people have fewer choices, then they feel like, oh, well, there's a scarcity there. And that scarcity mindset causes people to want to couple up a little bit more. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Robbie Thurman says, the F-bomb, are they being rationed? Yes, they are. There's only so many F-bombs that can be dropped in the Wake Up America show. You can text us today because there are an unlimited amount of free texts at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Don't forget, we do have Judge Napolitano coming up to join us here at 8:30 a.m. Central Time to talk about the case against Donald Trump and whether or not he thinks he will be arrested. All right, let's continue on with this piece here. So while there are several kind of like culprits that you could point a finger at causing relationship breakdowns amongst Generation Z, the younger generation, the author of this piece that cited this article, or excuse me, cited this this poll, is laying the blame at dating apps, social media, and pornography. Let's start with dating apps. So the advent of relationship websites started with Match.com in '95, and then they just kind of evolved from there into what we know as, Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and all this stuff. But according to a survey of about 6,000 adults that was done, 53% of adults 18 to 29 have found someone to date through an app or site. It's much more common. Do you remember back in the early days of internet dating when it used to be you would be ashamed to admit that you met your significant other on the internet? And now it's actually more common than anything else. But now new census data shows that the U.S. marriage rate has hit an all-time low in 2019. So for every 1,000 unmarried adults, only 33 got married. This number was 35 a decade ago in 2010, and much higher at 86% in 1970. So let's drop these numbers again, because I think this is kind of a massive deal, something that we're probably not spending enough time on discussing. According to this survey, for every 1,000 unmarried adults, only 33 got married. 35 of them got married in 2010. In 1970, 86% of 1,000 adults got married. Whoa, that's huge. It's easier for us to date, right? It's easier for men to at least try, thanks to technology. But the technology has kind of like created this counterintuitive situation that leads a lot of young men to having a very fickle attitude towards relationships, where they're constantly searching for the next thing instead of committing to one person. Same thing happens with women as well, this abundance of choice. But young men kind of they find it difficult to build a sort of connection with people on these apps because of this sense of constant availability. There's always somebody else to talk to or respond to. If you're a woman, especially, it's got to be damn near impossible to keep up. Even if you're a 4 on these dating apps, you're going to get 1,000 messages within an hour. All right, even a 2 can get 100 messages in a day. Not the same thing with men, where you're, the sort of competition that you would experience out in the real world, which is, admittedly tough, probably easier now because all the men are trying on these dating apps. But the fact is that when you have all of this choice, it's a paradox of choice. So why would you continue to have a conversation with this guy who's a 5 when you've got a 7 on the line, and every once in a while the 9 will drunk text you or what have you, right? So this paradox of choice is hurting people. You would think that it would do the opposite, right? Social media kind of vies for people's attention, and it leads women to commercialize themselves, and it gives men a very unrealistic expectation of what the dating pool is like, right? Because on social media, of course, people are only going to show themselves at their best, even if it's fake. But with the advancements in facial recognition technology, many times men are looking at women through heavily filtered and airbrushed lenses, and constant improvements in that technology is making it appear. So what you're seeing is this facade, thousands and thousands of women on these dating apps as a man. You think, "Oh, well, yeah, most women look like this because that's what they look like on the dating apps." Again, if you're young, like we're older, we know a little bit better, right? I'm a geriatric millennial. Some of you are Generation X. Some of you might even be boomers, the dreaded boomers. But if you are, it may seem funny to you and silly, and it's easy to kind of poo-poo it, but you have to understand that when you grow up in a certain environment, the way Gen Z has, where they've lived their entire lives online, it can warp your sense of reality. And it's not just the kind of thing necessarily where you can just grab a young person and shake them and say, this is not what women look like, this is not what real women look like, right? Because they, again, living their lives online, these are the people that they see. So it's not as if they know for sure what a real woman looks like, because they're not spending enough time outside. um R Volt says, I've never had a 10, but I've had 5 twos. Oh, very funny, very funny. Doug H says, as a single guy who's not necessarily looking or trying, but would embrace it if it happened, I feel attacked. Yes. While women reap the benefit of online attention, men are kind of left wondering how the dating pool has become so out of reach. There's this 80-20 rule that we talk about a lot of times in red pill communities, which is that, 20% of the men are dating 80% of the women, because of course women always hold higher standards, want to date up. They call this hypergamy. And so, women, when they're surveyed and when they look at analytic data from dating apps, women being much more picky than men, they only see a very small amount of men as truly as within what they would consider the acceptable range of what they would date, right? And it makes perfect sense. Women are more choosy. That's what it is. The egg is, there's a lot more energy expended into the reproductive process for women than there is for men. And if you consider that, then it makes a lot of sense why the 80-20 rule exists. I think nowadays it's actually less of an 80-20 rule, and it's more of a 10% of men are probably dating 80% of the women, and about 90% of men are left out of the dating pool, because again, with this paradox of choice, a woman, why would a woman spend a time with a 7 when she could get a 10, or she thinks she can hold herself out for 10? If you poll women, then and you say, where do you kind of rate yourselves? They all rank themselves as, above average or to perfect in terms of their quality and their character and their looks. And so it just becomes sort of an impossible task, where it's a Sisyphean challenge that men have in order to try and meet the ever narrowing standards that women have for their men. I mean, consider this, and I think I talked about this on the show last week. I'll just briefly reiterate. If you want a guy who's 6 foot tall, I think it's only like 12 to 17% of the male population are 6 feet tall. If you want a man who's 6 feet tall and earns, $100,000 a year or more, we're talking about 1%, I believe, of the male population. And if you start adding anything on top of that, an advanced degree, to match yours, if you're a master's degree, which most women are getting master's degrees these days, if you want a man to be as educated or more than you, attractive, 6 feet tall at least, right? Which is, most women will say that's their minimum standards. You're talking about you're not even talking about 10% of the male population anymore. You're now talking about a fraction of 1% of the male population meet the ever narrowing standards that women have for men. And so most men, young men, just don't even try. And of course, Bill Maher is out there saying, "Hey, listen, you want to you want to get laid, you got to go out there and you got to pony up and you got to be a man. Well, that's true. To a certain extent, you do, right? But a lot of men just choose to opt out. They choose to go their own way. And it makes a lot of sense. You could understand. Maria Krabs says, my husband is an 11 on this scale. Sure. Quest Fanning says that part of the issue is the women, we hold women up on a pedestal. Andrew Lako says, I need to get stronger and more fit, but thank the Lord I'm 6'2". You lucky. So beautiful. Such a beautiful man. But yes, you are like the 1% of men, if you will. Flirting face to face leaves a better impression for actually building a relationship, though, gentlemen. It's funny. A buddy of mine, I say buddy, just an internet buddy, sent me a message over the weekend asking for advice on how to get ladies. And I could pull up the chat, but I just gave him the best advice that I could, this is what I said, because he has this girl that he really likes. I'm like, if you really like her, don't act like you like her. Just be cool and ask her out on a date, and if she rejects you, play it cool. Don't fly off the handle. Just chalk it up as experience. Because the fact is that you as a man are going to have to get used to rejection. Women, on the other hand, they don't have to. They can have their pick of the litter. But men, if you really want to be in a relationship, you cannot hold out for the one. You have to be willing to try and try and try and try and fail and fail and fail and fail until you up your skill level, right? And unless you're just a multimillionaire, 6'5", and handsome and rich and all this stuff, fine, then you're that point that fractional percent. But for the rest of us, man, if you really want to be in a relationship, you're going to have to make yourself better. You're going to have to learn how to talk. Right? It's not going to be enough. Your text game needs to be strong these days. Yes, you do need to be funny. You need to be able to have a conversation in the digital world that women typically largely live on online. But you're also going to have to be able to hold an actual conversation in real life. Because if you don't, you'll never be able to get past that first date. And the only way you're going to be able to do that in the reality is it's just like lifting weights, right? The first time that you lift weights, are you jacked like Arnold? No. What do you have to do? You have to continually try. You have to continually strive. It doesn't mean that you need to spend your life don't make your life revolving around trying to get dates. Don't make your life revolving around women, because women don't like that either. But what you have to do is you have to be able to learn to have a good, healthy conversation. That's how you'll be able to have somebody in real life, to be able to keep them in real life. Steffi says, AP is the perfect man. Be like him. Yes, of course. And don't be like this guy.
Look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
What's his name? Chris Morrill over in the stream says, it's funny how you are penalized for trying too hard. It's true. It's very true. But that applies to everything. Like my entire life, I think probably one of my biggest, fatal mistakes has been that I have been something of a try-hard, because nobody likes a try-hard. That's just what it is. And you just have to accept that politically, because if you're a try-hard, you better be you better have FU money at the end of the day if you're going to be try-hard, or else they'll hate you. Andrew Lako says, stay away from the socials, remain mysterious. That's actually not a bad idea, because then they go in and the ladies Google you to try and find out who you are, and they can't find out who you are, and they're just like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? He's so mysterious. And you could be her Christian Grey. What do you think? Send us a text this morning with your thoughts on this at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from our listeners today about what your thoughts are on this topic and more. We are going to go speak to Judge Andrew Napolitano coming up next. Yes. Boris the Blade sent us a message. He says, so I lucked out meeting Mrs. Boris. We met online. Been together 8 years now, married 6. The little Gopnik's mom I met in real life, and that was a disaster. Okay, all right. Speaking of disasters, will Donald Trump be arrested tomorrow? It's a great question. Probably we need to go ask a judge, because he's going to have a better legal analysis than I will. Okay? Oh, and you see all the ladies in the chat, gentlemen, who are giving you advice? When you go fishing, do you take advice on how to catch a fish from the fish? Don't listen to them, boys. Only listen to another man. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Jump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway.
I need help.
You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Goodness gracious, I almost missed that because I'm having so much fun talking to my good friend and the light for freedom, the tip of the spear here in the United States, fighting for liberty, your constitutional rights or natural rights. They've only been written down in the Constitution, but you did have those natural rights as intrinsic to your humanity, and I'm sure that he would agree. Judge Andrew Napolitano, who's joining us now. Good morning, Judge. Thanks for joining us on a Monday. We're glad to have you here.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, Austin. Yes, of course I agree. I wrote a treatise. It was just published last week. It's a doorstop. It's 500 pages. It has 2,000 footnotes. It's the history of the natural law in American constitutional use. So yes, I would agree. Yes, you have your finger on the pulse of where our rights come from. They come from our humanity, not from the government.
Absolutely, Judge. And we're certainly grateful to have a fellow freedom lover like yourself here today. Very briefly, Judge, before I get into the question of the day, which is, will Donald Trump be arrested tomorrow? Does this prosecuting attorney have the legitimate lawful authority to arrest Trump with these charges? We might say they're trumped up. But before we get there, Judge, you and I were talking during the break about sort of how you got your big break in television. Many of those who have been around for a long time might know the name Roger Ailes, who was the head of Fox News when I was there, and certainly he was sort of a mentor to you and brought you up. And the reason why I think this is relevant today, Judge, is because you were telling me a story about how you ran into him back in the days of Ronald Reagan, and I'll explain why I think it's relative very briefly, just because Trump is now attacking Ron DeSantis for being too much of a Reagan Republican, which used to be a compliment, now seems to be a slur. But how did you meet Roger Ailes that eventually led to you becoming, an anchor there at Fox News or their senior judicial analyst for a time?
Well, I was 26 years old and was an alternate delegate to the RNC in Kansas City. If you recall from history, that was a battle for the Republican nomination between the then incumbent, though appointed, Gerald Ford, and the former California governor, Mr. Ronald Reagan. And Roger made the rounds of the state delegations. There were two delegations from New Jersey. There was the Ford delegation and the Reagan delegation. The establishment, of course, was for Ford. The renegades were for Reagan. Roger made the rounds of these delegations because he was the head of PR and the chief strategist for one of the two campaigns, Ford or Reagan. Now, when I ask people which one of the two, you're one of the very few who guessed it correctly. Almost everybody goes, Roger Ailes, of course it was Reagan. No, Roger Ailes was running Gerald Ford's campaign because in 1976, Republicans thought that Ronald Reagan was a John Birch or a right-wing kook who would never be able to manifest popularity to a broad base of American voters. Of course, 4 years later, that argument was proven wrong. Ford got the nomination. He picked Bob Dole to run with him. Ford did an unusual thing at the convention. He called Reagan up to the podium from Reagan's seat in the arena. And it took Reagan a while to get there. I don't remember what the arena was, but it was a big arena like Madison Square Garden in New York City. Reagan got up there and extemporaneously spoke, not very long, maybe for 3 or 4 minutes. It was the best speech of the whole convention. Bill Safire wrote a great piece about it in the New York Times. Austin, this is the summer of 1976. I'm sure you weren't even born. Bill Safire wrote a great piece about it in the New York Times called A Few Good Words About Reagan. Reagan left that convention defeated, but heroic, admired, envied, and people couldn't wait for his turn 4 years later.
That's fascinating. Not only do you walk in the halls of history, Judge, but you also make it as an alternate delegate there from New Jersey. What a fascinating turn it must have been, Judge. You sort of walked the same path as Ron Paul in a way, as being, I guess, a vociferous supporter of Ronald Reagan initially, but then after having watched him in his first term and having, I'm sure, learned about Iran-Contra and many other scandals and his war on drugs, that you went from a man who wore a Bomb Hanoi shirt to the ardent anti-drug warrior libertarian that you are today. I guess it must be frustrating for you as much as it is for me, having looked back on history, you having lived it, but it must be frustrating today to see Donald Trump Republicans attacking Ron DeSantis for being too Reagan, when if you're getting booed for that as a Republican, I can pretty much guarantee you they're not booing him because he wasn't, MAGA enough. They were probably booing him because they thought he was too libertarian. But our libertarian friends think that he was too authoritarian and statist, Judge. It's a
Yeah,
bizarro clown
it's
world we live in.
yes, it's really a circular argument, no question about it. Ronald Reagan was the last Republican presidential nominee that I voted for since 1984, which is his reelection campaign. That year he runs against Mondale. In 1980, he ran against the incumbent sitting president, Jimmy Carter. Since 1984, I've always voted for the libertarian. I think Reagan at heart, and this is from Bill Rusher, the publisher of National Review, a fellow Princeton alumnus whom I got to know very well. Reagan was just a big-hearted Western libertarian who wanted the government out of our lives. But when he got to Washington, was surrounded by the Jim Baker types who brought him into the mainstream Republicanism, which basically stands for nothing. Republicans stand for nothing today. Chuck Schumer is more intellectually honest than your average Republican. I know what he stands for, and he does what he says he's going to do. Republicans give lip service to being in favor of the free market and limited government and maximum individual liberty and no unnecessary wars, and then they do the opposite. Schumer's in favor of micromanaging the economy, and he votes for it. He's in favor of raising taxes on the rich, and he votes for it. At least I know where he stands. Republicans, you don't know where they stand. I'm very disheartened with what remains of the Republican Party. I agree with Ron DeSantis 110% on his views on Ukraine, as I'm sure you agree. Yet he's been an authoritarian governor with tinges of racism. So I can't vote for him. I may rue the day I said that. Maybe he's going to offer me a judgeship again, although I'm too old for that. But
watch out, Judge. Be careful. We need to give you a little bit of the Machiavellian treatment, Judge, just to hold yourself back until we can finally get you in a position of power, so you can take over the government and leave us alone. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, speaking to my good friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Now, we went off. Typically, I wait until the end of our segments to go off on a tangent. But this week, we are going to get the judge twice before I go on my trip. So that will be nice. The judge has graciously allowed us an extra segment today for us to talk a little bit about the indictment of Donald Trump. Now, Judge, you and I both know that I think your famous statement is, a federal grand jury can indict a ham sandwich, but this isn't even a federal grand jury we're talking about here. We're talking about a Manhattan district attorney who is going to have Donald Trump arrested tomorrow, allegedly, on the basis of what appears to be federal election campaign laws. So essentially, the argument is that
All
Trump.
right, so there is a grand jury here. New York requires most states do this. Missouri does, where you are. New Jersey does. New York requires prosecution of felonies by grand jury. So the grand jury, which is 23 citizens meeting in secret, there's no judge there, there's no defense counsel there, there's only the prosecutor and the prosecutor's witnesses. They've been hearing evidence against Donald Trump for weeks now. The I'm going to be arrested on Tuesday was made up by Trump. When Trump's spokesperson was asked, where did you get Tuesday from? Did the prosecutors tell you they're going to arrest him on Tuesday? And the spokesperson said, no, the president got this from where he gets most of his information, on television. So I don't know what the day is going to be, but it's pretty clear that this grand jury will indict the president. Now, the charge is a little esoteric, so bear with me for a minute. There are two charges here. One is recording in corporate books a corporate expenditure in a deceptive manner. Now, you might say, well, what business is that of the state? This isn't a publicly traded corporation. It's a family-owned corporation. Well, the state of New York requires you to keep accurate books. And if you record something in your books, if you record hush money as a legal payment rather than as hush money, even though the hush money payment itself is lawful, you've committed a misdemeanor. Big deal, a misdemeanor. You don't go to jail. The maximum penalty is under a year in jail. If you have no priors, nobody goes to jail for a misdemeanor. You pay a fine and you go away. Unless that fraudulent recording was to mask a felony, in which case the fraudulent recording itself is a felony. What felony does the district attorney say was being masked by the false recording? The felony was using corporate funds for a campaign purpose. So was the payment to Stormy Daniels of $130,000 to save Trump's marriage, as Trump will claim, or to save Trump's campaign? This is 2 weeks before Election Day in 2016. He's running against Hillary Clinton at this point. If it was to save his campaign, it's corporate funds, it's a felony. If it was to save his marriage, doesn't matter where the money came from, it's absolutely not a felony. Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer at the time, who arranged this thing, Michael Cohen took out a $150,000 home equity loan on his own apartment in New York City, sent $130,000 to a shell company in Delaware. That corporation sent $130,000 to Stormy Daniels' lawyer in California. The lawyer took out his fee and paid the rest to the Trump organization. $10,000 a month for 13 months. Each of those reimbursements was booked as legal fees. Were they legal fees? No, they were reimbursing money that Michael Cohen had fronted for Donald Trump. So you get a kick out of this when Donald Trump says, I didn't sign my name to anything. That's true. He signed an assumed name. You can't make this up. He signed the settlement papers as James Dennison. Don't ask me where that came from. It's a name that Michael Cohen made up. Stormy Daniels signed the settlement papers on the trunk of a car as she was outside of a film studio filming pornography. I mean, again, you can't make this up. All of this was laid out before the grand jury. It's very tawdry, but it comes down to what was that $130,000 paid for? To save his campaign or to save his marriage?
Okay, great. Oh, God, this is such good stuff. Judge Napolitano joining us here on the Wake Up America show for a special bonus segment here on Monday. Todd in Minnesota has a good question for you, as well as Maria, who's on the stream. And he was asking, will he be arrested and detained or just arrested and released? Maria was asking, how could it be proved that that Trump was using it for the corporate money for campaigns or saving his marriage? So first question first, if he's arrested, would he be released within 24 hours, would you say?
Well, so there are arrests and arrests. They're not going to break down the door of his apartment and take him out in shackles. White collar criminal cases, unless you're Roger Stone, where they showed up with 25 armed agents and a helicopter and a gunboat. But normally in white collar cases, the prosecutors say to the defense lawyers, your client's been indicted. We need him to surrender. Here's a 48-hour window in which to surrender. Here's the phone number to call to make an appointment to surrender. So he will peacefully surrender, but that is under the law an arrest. What will happen to him is what happens to everybody. He'll be booked. I mean, it's a relatively benign process. It's humiliating, but it's benign. So they will take his fingerprints. This part he'll hate. They will weigh him. I know he'll hate this because he's talked to me about his waistline. They will weigh him. They will measure him. They will take the mug shots. I mean, that mug shot will fly around the world in a nanosecond. As soon as they release it, they will fingerprint him. He'll then go before a judge. The judge will say, oh, again, this is ridiculous. Are you Donald Trump? Yes. Do you understand the charges against you? He can either say, no, read me the charges, which will piss everybody off because it'll take a while to read them, or he'll say, yes, I understand them. The judge will say, okay, there's no bail in this case. You're released on your own recognizance. I'll see the lawyers, and he'll pick a date to discuss what happens next in the case. So technically that's an arrest, but it's not an arrest like we see on television. I forget what the other question was, Austin.
Yeah, Maria had asked this morning, how would they be able to determine whether or not it was a payment made to save his marriage or a payment to protect his campaign?
Okay, so Michael Cohen has already pleaded guilty to orchestrating the use of federal funds for a campaign purpose. He went to jail. He was sentenced to jail for 3 years. He got out after about 3 months because the jail was infested with COVID. And then after he was out for a while, he started helping them in this case. And so they said, you don't have to go back to jail. But he's already pleaded guilty to that. So he's the principal witness against Trump. So a federal judge, this case against Trump is a state case, so there won't be any feds involved. A federal judge has already agreed that this scheme was a felony and that Michael Cohen, who orchestrated the scheme involving the assumed names and the use of his own money, gradually, slowly being reimbursed over 13 months, a federal judge has already agreed that that is a felony. Michael Cohen will tell the jury, Trump told me to do this because the Access Hollywood tapes had just come out in the campaign. If Stormy Daniels started talking to the press, Trump was a goner and he didn't want this to happen. This will force Trump to take the witness stand, the worst thing he can do, because they'll spend a week cross-examining him, the worst thing he can do. But it will force him to take the witness stand to say, no, Cohen's a liar. I did this because I thought Melania would lock the doors of Trump Tower and not let me in my apartment. You know, as Yogi Berra once said when he learned the mayor of Dublin was a Jew, only in America. You know, you can't make this up.
Oh my God, it's funny stuff, Judge. One last thing on this topic, Judge, and then I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you've got going on with Judging Freedom. But there are a lot of people who are saying that this is a trap for MAGA supporters, that the expectation is that there might be outbreaks of violence around the country in rallies to try and support Trump. Do you believe that on January 6th that there were agents of the federal government who were there fomenting chaos and violence? Do you think that this is a way for the left to try and entrap and ensnare Trump's supporters into doing something stupid?
Yes to all those questions. Many of these prosecutions, you and I talked about this last week, are absurd. You know, Clarence Darrow once famously said, if a boy steals a dime, he's not going to go to jail. But if two boys conspire to steal a dime and then don't steal it, they're going to go to jail for conspiracy. We have that with the Proud Boys. These people weren't even physically present in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and they're charged with conspiracy to do the impossible. 5 human beings overthrow the government of the United States of America. How does the government know about the conspiracy? An undercover FBI agent had infiltrated them. The FBI was all over the place. Every time the Republicans on the, now I'll say a good thing about the Republicans, every time the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee ask Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, how many FBI agents were present on 9/11, or excuse me, God have mercy on me, on January 6th, he won't answer, because the number would be startling. It would blow your mind as to the nature and extent of FBI involvement in January 6th. Now, in terms of, is this a conspiracy against Trump? I don't know the answer to that. You know, he's got 3 other indictments likely. The district attorney in Atlanta, there's real forgery in that case of sending phony electors to Washington. Mar-a-Lago, very, very serious allegations of obstruction of justice by hiding documents. And then did he incite the January 6th riot? This is the weakest of those cases. But I think the Democrats should want Trump as the Republican nominee. I think that's the only way Joe Biden can get reelected.
I think I agree, but I think Democrats would never admit that that's the case. They probably, think in some weird world, some fantasy that they live in, that they are trying to prevent, by arresting him, that they're trying to prevent him from being the candidate. But Trump's supporters make a good case when they suggest that there is a conspiracy against him, that the feds were there at January 6th. Because, like you, Judge, I happen to believe in this, that the federal government uses a Jean provocateur at these rallies and infiltrates these groups. And not only are they there just to observe and to spy on them to try and prevent violence, but I actually believe that they probably foment it as a means to get prosecutions and as a means to go after their political enemies. My belief
this
is
is
that,
an
go ahead.
example. This is an example of the existence of the deep state, because who was in charge of the federal government on January 6, 2021? Trump himself, his appointed AG, his appointed director of the FBI. So either they conspired against him, or these FBI agents were rogue and did it on their own, which would be an even worse case if FBI agents can use their badges and their shields and promises of immunity to orchestrate criminality in order to ensnare people. That's like the KGB.
But that is what the FBI has become, is it not, Judge? I mean, unbeholden to the administrations. I mean, my belief is that the FBI really is the federal police force for the Democratic Party, because the Democrats are the party of government, and so it is. They see it as in their best interest to go after their political enemies, which is the Republican Party. If we have a Republican president, it won't change anything because the FBI is beholden to the Democrats. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Unless Jim Jordan and the House Republicans can do something radical. I mean, Jordan's talking about not reauthorizing Pfizer. That would be fabulous. Jordan he's not going to talk about getting rid of the FBI, but he may be talking about some institutional accountability and a drastic slashing of their budget.
The last president who did that, I believe, was Chester A. Arthur, who performed a massive overhaul of the bureaucracy. Definitely something that needs to be looked into as a historical reference point.
And the last president who tried to reform the CIA,
John F. Kennedy,
died on November 22nd, 1963.
See, Judge, that kind of historical analysis you just don't get anywhere else, which is why people have got to be watching Judging Freedom. What are you talking about next, and who are you talking to, Judge, in your fantastically
believe it or not,
show?
Tomorrow I have Ed Rollins, who's going to say the same thing about the Republican Party that you and I have been saying, and he's been an institution in the Republican Party, managed Reagan's second campaign for president. I have Ray McGovern, who's the great renegade ex-CIA guy. And then on Wednesday, also tomorrow, Doug McGregor, and on Wednesday, Scott Ritter.
You always get the best guest, Judge, but you yourself are the best guest, at least on my show, and we're super grateful for your double appearance this week. Judge, thanks so much for all your insight.
You promise you'll have me back on Wednesday?
We'll be back on Wednesday, Judge, and we will look forward to it. I can't wait. Thank you so much for your time today, Judge. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Austin. All the best, my dear friend.
Thank you very much. What do you think about a double dose of Judge Napolitano this week on the Austin Peterson Wake Up America show? All right. We've only got a little bit less than 10 minutes to go. I can't forget to tell you about my friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition, who have come up with a great formula for you to get your 6 cups of fruits and vegetables every day. We just don't have time. My mother-in-law has been here last week. I've been eating like crap, but you know what? I've got my field of greens because I still need to at least get the vitamins and minerals that I need to get up early. When I get up early in the morning to get ready for the Wake Up America show, I need some energy. I need some coffee. I need some water. I need some fruit, and I need my field of greens, because I'm only really getting like maybe 1 serving of fruits and vegetables a day, 1 serving of fruit, maybe 1 serving of vegetable. But when I take field of greens, I get all of them. All the nutrition I need, 10 calories. Listen, some of you guys have already got some already. You've got your field of greens and you've been trying it. Andy and Matt have already gotten some. My lovely mother-in-law bought some for my sister-in-law out in California, right? But it's not just for crunchy Californians. It's for good Liberty Republicans, conservatives, and libertarians like yourselves to get healthy, because that's the number one way for us to be able to fight back. If you don't have your health, how can you fight against government overreach? How can you fight for freedom if you're not healthy enough? you need to get some Field of Greens. Use my coupon code AP4Liberty at fieldofgreens.com. You get 15% off your first order. And here's the thing. If Matt or Andy go to the doctor the next time, if you've been taking it regularly, taking it every day, it's not like a pill or anything like that. You drink it. It's delicious. But if they go to their doctor next time, their doctor doesn't say, hey, yeah, whatever you're doing to improve your health is working, keep it up, they're going to get their money back. So it's really a risk-free investment in your health because you'll get your money back if your health doesn't improve. 15% off, use code AP4Liberty. That's AP, the number 4, AP4Liberty, and you'll get your 15% off. Love to have the judge on the show. Yeah, drinking the greens, says Andy. That's right. You need protein in the morning with those greens. Cuts appetite. You know what I eat in the morning? And I'm pretty sure protein is... There might be some protein in oatmeal. I'm a big oatmeal guy. I like to start my day with a... No, wrong scene. That's double me. There we go. Let's go back. Putting a piece of paper in place or removing a piece of paper is ceremonial. True solutions are acts, not writings. Ironic that they place the word act within the title of the writing. Do not comply, says Todd. Boy, Todd, you're like my new favorite guy this morning. Can we give it up for Todd over there on Twitch, hanging it out? He's like the lone gunman over there this morning. Nice to see you over there, Todd. We hope that you'll continue to come back and hang out with us on the Wake Up America show. Just so you know, we don't get a whole lot of viewers over on Twitch, but we do have a big audience over on YouTube. So if you ever want to hang out with the chatters, you're totally welcome to do so over at youtube.com/AP4Liberty. If you want to hang out with the Cantina crew. Of course, if you want to be the lone gunman over there, glad to have you over there as well. And it's been nice to see your comments over on the show. So let's give it up for Todd in Minnesota this morning. He's had some great comments. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had let's see, did I have any more stories to go? Because I've only got 4 minutes left to go. No, I don't really have many more stories anyway. No big deal. Anyways, this is my chance to talk to you about AP for Liberty Shop, and I'll give you a couple of real quick updates about what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So as you know, my brother Justin Peterson is going to take over hosting the show for me at least next week. So I've got him committed to at least 5 days. But there might be a 4 to 5 day period where I will not be able to do the Wake Up America show. Okay. Guess what? I get to take a vacation too. Okay. Sorry, but you know what it is. So here's the deal. My brother will take over for at least 5 days next week. He'll be great. Be nice to him. He's going to try his best to make everything work. He's very nervous about it. So hopefully everything will work out. I've been training him up to get him ready. So we'll be back on April the 6th, 7th. Not entirely sure on that one. We'll be back on April 6th or 7th, and then I'll get the show back up on the road with with myself when I return from my trip to Japan with my lovely wife. So we will be back after our trip. We're leaving this Saturday, arriving Sunday, I believe, or Monday. Our flight is 13 hours into Japan, so it's going to be a little long time. Right. So that's the deal. And next week you should be nice to my brother, and he will be taking care of you on that one. Over at apforlibertyshop.com, we've been selling the hell out of our Caucasians team jerseys. Have you seen these new Caucasians team jerseys that I've made at AP for Liberty Shop have been driving people crazy. They love it. I've made them for all different races, Christianity, races, ethnicities, and religions. But we have a whole collection of like team jerseys, frosted mugs. Great way to spark a conversation. Somebody said yesterday that they're going to wear this Caucasians jersey to their Easter Sunday lunch with their family, which I think is just actually pretty friggin' hilarious. So if you want a great conversation piece, get your Caucasians team jersey over at apforlibertyshop.com. Also, what was the other thing that I had over? Oh, yeah, that whole little thing. If you want a free chance to win an AK-47 patterned in 9mm, then once you head over there, grab your Caucasians jersey, you can sign up to win a free AK-47. Here's the thing. If you buy a Caucasians jersey, you're entered to win automatically. So everybody who has been a shopper at AP for Liberty Shop is already entered to win. So you're already set that way. If you're not and you want a free entry, head over to apforlibertyshop.com, get yourself a free entry, or just buy a Caucasians Chad jersey. or anything else you like, get yourself like a Killdozer. I've got 5 Killdozers left to sell. FYI, we've also got Arrest Fauci tees. Being fat is actually fit-phobic t-shirts. Yes, our Arrest Fauci and Being Fat is fit-phobic tees are on sale now. Remember, free shipping in the United States. We've got a new Thomas Sowell shirt. Our rash guards for jiu-jitsu guys have been selling really well. Call the cops. I don't give a you know what. But like I said, if you want a Caucasians jersey, you can get one. We've also got the Christians in Nomine Patris team jersey. And we've got Jesus, a priest, and American nationalist Christian all in it together there. So Don't Tread on Me tees on sale as well. Phone cases. I even yesterday made an awesome Don't Tread on Me Apple Watch. So Apple Watch band. So if you've got an Apple Watch, I've got a really cool, I made a Taxation is Theft Don't Tread on Me watch band for you guys. So if you've got an Apple Watch and you want a really cool libertarian watch band, you can check it out. People really like the End the Fed sweaters as well. But I mean, basically every day, Stephanie and I are creating new items for the AP for Liberty shop, guns and gams, plus size leggings. So there's a little something for everybody over there. Cool hoodies, backpacks, shoes, shirts. I mean, pretty much everything. This one was yesterday. This is my brand new one. I just made this last night. This is going to be a new little series I'm going to do. This is the Tax This Dick George Washington founding wrestler tee. So I'm going to do founding fathers all as professional wrestlers with their own catchphrases. And then I might make a commercial or a maybe even a TV show about the founding wrestlers. And they fight the British and they fight statists like in the ring and like do pile drivers or something like that. So I'm coming up with an idea about like a new TV show for the founding wrestlers. What do you think? Tax This Dick, George Washington. You can get that for $25 over at apflibertyshop.com. And again, $25. What do you mean $25 for a t-shirt? Well, guess what? Free shipping. So you don't got to worry about it if you're in the United States. So go head on over to apflibertyshop.com. Get your Tax This Dick, George Washington founding wrestler tee. And we'll see you tomorrow. This is it. Last week before I go. All right, it's time to go. I appreciate y'all very much. Thanks for watching us. Nice big crowds today over at the YouTube channel. Like to see it. Good to see all of our friends over on Rumble this morning. Joni Rankin, Robbie Thurman, Quest Fanning. Joni, hey, she says, any chance there are women's V-necks? Here's the dealio. I'll make custom products for anybody who wants one. Somebody asked me for a Make Taxation or Taxation is Theft metal sign for their tax preparer dad to put in his office where it looked like Live, Laugh, Love. And after about an hour, I was able to put it together for him. And now it's on the shop. Taxation is Theft, but like looks like Live, Laugh, Love. So Joni, if you want like a lady's like V-neck, just tell me what design you want it in. Send me a DM like on Twitter or whatever, AP for Liberty or what have you. And I'll make it, custom for you. So if you have like a custom Liberty product that you really want, but you haven't seen it in the shop, just let me know and I'll get it done for you today. Get your requests in soon because I'm going to Japan, baby, the end of this week. We'll see you tomorrow, though, for 4 more days of fun and rising and freedoming on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericashow.com. Bye, guys. See you later.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.